The Terra Nova moved through the darkness of space like a silver needle threading through black cloth. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main window. He had been in space for 15 years, but the sight still made him feel small and amazed. "Captain, we're getting those strange signals again," said Dr. Amanda Clark from her science station. She pushed her brown hair back from her face and looked at the readings on her screen. "They're stronger. Now, much stronger." Jake walked over to her station. The numbers and graphs on the screen meant nothing to him, but Amanda's worried face told him everything he needed to know. "How much stronger?" he asked. "What we detected last week, and Captain, these signals are not natural. Something is making them." Ben Carter, the navigation officer, looked up from his controls. "Captain, if we keep following these signals, we'll be leaving known space in 2 days. We'll be further from Earth than any human has ever been." Jake nodded. "Right." Terra Nova was humanity's newest and best exploration ship. They had been sent to investigate strange energy readings that Earth's deep space sensors had picked up 6 months ago. So far, they had found nothing but empty space and dead planets. "Lisa, have you made any progress on those transmissions?" Jake asked. Lisa Hayes, their communications officer, shook her head. "The signals are complex, Captain. More complex than anything we've ever seen. If I didn't know better, I'd say they were some kind of language." "A language?" Jake felt his heart beat faster. "You mean like an alien language? I don't know what else it could be. But Captain, if these signals are from aliens, they're incredibly advanced. The math behind these transmissions is beyond anything we can do." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They had been together for 3 years, exploring the outer edges of human space. They were good people, and he trusted them with his life, but this was different. This might be humanity's first contact with another intelligent species. "How long until we reach the source of the signals?" he asked Ben. 36 hours at current speed. Take us there. But everyone stays alert. We don't know what we're flying into." 2 days later, the Terra Nova dropped out of faster than light. Travel near a red giant star. The star was old and dying, its surface covered with dark spots and flares. But that wasn't what made the crew stare in wonder. "My God," whispered Ryan Brooks, the chief engineer. "Look at that." Orbiting the dying star was a massive space station. It was bigger than any city on Earth, made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange towers and spires jutted out from its surface, and it pulsed with a faint blue glow. "Amanda, how old is that thing?" Jake asked. Dr. Clark worked frantically at her station, running every scan the ship had. "Captain, according to these readings, that station is over 50,000 years old. It was built before humans even discovered fire." The crew stood in stunned silence. 50,000 years. Station had been here since before human civilization existed. "Signals are coming from there," Lisa reported. "And Captain there? Getting stronger. It's like the station knows we're here." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Ben, take us in slowly. Ryan, make sure our shields are ready." As the Terra Nova approached the ancient station, lights began to flicker across its surface. The blue glow grew brighter, and strange symbols appeared on the dark metal walls. "Captain," Lisa called out, her voice tight with fear. "I'm getting a transmission. It's in English." English. Jake couldn't believe it. "That's impossible. How could they know English?" "I don't know, but the message is clear. They're telling us to stop and prepare to be scanned." Jake looked at his crew. They were all scared, but they were also excited. This was what they had trained for their entire lives. First contact with an alien species. "Tell them we're peaceful. Explorers from Earth," Jake said. "We come in friendship." Lisa worked at her controls, sending the message. They waited for a response, but none came. Instead, the station's weapon systems activated. "Captain, multiple energy signatures powering up," Ryan called out. "They're targeting us." Shields up. Evasive maneuvers. The Terra Nova shook as massive energy beams struck their shields. The lights flickered, and sparks flew from damaged control panels. Ryan fought to keep their defensive systems online, while Ben flew the ship in a wild pattern to avoid the weapons. "Why are they attacking us?" Amanda shouted over the noise. "Told them we were peaceful." Before Jake could answer, the station's weapons stopped firing. The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of damaged systems and the crew's heavy breathing. Captain Lisa said quietly, "I'm getting another transmission. Put it through." A voice filled the bridge. It was calm and emotionless, like a computer, but it spoke perfect English with no accent. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am the Guardian of this station. You've been judged by the Galactic Council and found guilty of crimes against the galaxy. Prepare for judgment." Jake felt his blood turn to ice. Crimes? What crimes? We've never even left our own solar system until recently. "Crimes you will commit," the voice replied. "The Council has studied your species for thousands of years. Your nature makes you dangerous to galactic peace. You are aggressive, competitive, and unpredictable. You spread chaos wherever you go." "That's not true," Jake said. "We're explorers. We want to learn and make friends with other species. The Council's decision is final. Your species was marked for elimination once you achieved interstellar travel. That time has come." Dr. Clark spoke up. "You said the Council studied us for thousands of years. Are they still alive? The Council fell long ago, but their wisdom lives on in stations like this one. We continue their work." "So you're going to kill us for crimes we haven't committed, on the orders of people who died thousands of years ago?" Jake couldn't hide his anger. "It is necessary for the good of the galaxy." Jake looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were also angry. This ancient machine was threatening to destroy humanity based on the paranoid fears of a long-dead civilization. "How many other species have you judged?" Amanda asked. "Many of those who were deemed acceptable were allowed to develop and eventually contacted. Those who were deemed dangerous were eliminated. And how many were eliminated?" 47 species have been removed from the galaxy to preserve peace and order." The bridge fell silent. 47 entire species wiped out by this ancient system. Jake felt sick to his stomach. "What happens now?" he asked. "Signals are being sent to all member species of the current galactic community. They will be informed of humanity's danger and given the directive to eliminate your species before you can spread your chaos to other worlds." "You're starting a war," Jake said. "I am preventing one. Your species would eventually destroy the peace that has existed for millennia." Jake looked at his crew one more time. They were no longer just explorers. They were now humanity's first line of defense against a galaxy that had already decided to destroy them. "Lisa, can you send a message back to Earth?" "Yes, Captain. It'll take months to reach them. Send it anyway. Tell them what we've found here. Tell them that humanity is about to face its greatest challenge." As Lisa worked to send the message, Jake stared at the ancient station. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations were receiving orders to destroy humanity. The age of exploration was over. Age of war was about to begin, and it all started with a signal in the darkness of space. The emergency meeting room at Earth Defense Command was packed with worried faces. Admiral Patricia Stone sat at the head of the table, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Around her sat the most important people in human space: generals, scientists, and politicians who had never imagined they would be discussing the survival of their entire species. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," said President Karen Mitchell, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes.
Ow.
"Ancient alien computer has declared war on humanity because we might become dangerous in the future." "That's correct, Madam President," Admiral Stone replied. Captain Morrison's message was clear. "The galaxy has been given orders to eliminate us." General Chris Parker slammed his fist on the table. "This is insane. We've never even met another intelligent species, and they want to wipe us out?" Dr. Helen Ross from the Xenobiology Institute raised her hand. "Perhaps we should try to communicate with them. Maybe we can convince them that we're not a threat." "How do you talk to people who have already decided to kill you?" General Parker shot back. "We need to prepare for war, not waste time on diplomacy." "Admiral?" Stone held up her hand for silence. "Before we decide anything, we need to understand what we're facing." "Lieutenant Commander Walsh, what did you find in the data Captain Morrison sent?" Steve Walsh, a young tactical analyst, stood up and activated the wall screen. Images of alien ships and weapons appeared, along with charts and graphs. The ancient station provided historical records of the other species that were eliminated, he began. The Cathara were destroyed by engineered diseases that their immune systems couldn't fight. The Vector faced coordinated attacks from multiple alien species who believed they were saving the galaxy. The Zephyrians were destroyed through economic warfare that made their civilization collapse. How long did it take to eliminate these species? Asked President Mitchell. Between 10 and 50 years for each species. The galaxy is patient. They don't rush into battle. They plan carefully and strike when their target is weakest. Dr. Ross leaned forward. What made these species dangerous? What did they have in common? Steve brought up another chart. According to the records, all the eliminated species shared certain traits. They were independent, competitive, and innovative. They developed technology quickly and didn't follow traditional social structures. That sounds exactly like humanity, General Parker said grimly. It gets worse, Steve continued. The species that were allowed to survive are all either pacifist, collectivist, or have rigid social hierarchies. They're predictable and stable. The Ancient Council feared change and innovation above all else. Admiral Stone studied the data. What about the current galactic community? What do we know about them? The major powers are the Altarian Republic, the Centauri Collective, and the Andromedan Commonwealth. There are dozens of smaller species, but these three control most of the galaxy. Military strength? Asked General Parker.
Known but based.
On the historical records, they haven't fought a real war in over 1,000 years. Their military forces are mostly ceremonial. President Mitchell looked around the room. So we're being condemned by species who have forgotten how to fight. It's based on the fears of a civilization that died millennia ago. It appears that way, Madam President. Meanwhile, millions of miles away, the Terra Nova remained near the ancient station. Captain Morrison had requested permission to gather more intelligence before returning to Earth. The alien guardian seemed willing to talk, perhaps enjoying the chance to explain its mission after thousands of years of silence. Tell me about the Galactic Council, Dr. Clark said into the communications system. Who were they? The council was formed 50,000 years ago by the first spacefaring species in this galaxy, the Guardian replied. They believed that order and stability were the highest virtues. They studied each new species that developed space travel and judged whether they would contribute to galactic harmony. And they decided that competitive, innovative species were dangerous, correct. Such species create conflict and chaos. They upset the natural order. Ben Carter, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. But without competition and innovation, how does a civilization advance? How do they solve new problems? Don't need to. The Council created a perfect system. Each species has its role, its place in the galactic order. There are no problems that require dangerous innovation. Dr. Clark exchanged glances with her crewmates. What about exploration? Discovery? The joy of learning new things? Unnecessary. The Council mapped the galaxy and recorded all knowledge worth knowing. There's nothing left to discover. That's not living, whispered Lisa Hayes. That's just existing. The Guardian continued its explanation. The current galactic species have lived in peace for over 10,000 years. There is no war, no conflict, no suffering. The Council's vision was achieved. No growth, no excitement, no freedom, Captain Morrison added. Freedom is chaos. The Council eliminated chaos. Back on Earth, the debate continued. More information had arrived from other human colonies and exploration ships. The ancient stations were activating throughout the galaxy, and alien civilizations were responding to the call. We've received reports from New Geneva and Mars Colony, Admiral Stone announced. Long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements from multiple alien civilizations. They're not just talking about eliminating us. They're actually doing it. The room fell silent. The threat was real and immediate. How long do we have? Asked President Mitchell. Based on the distances involved, the first attacks will likely come within 6 months. Maybe less if they have faster ships than we think. General Parker stood up. We need to mobilize every ship, every weapon, every soldier we have. This is a fight for survival. With respect, General, Dr. Ross interjected. We're talking about multiple advanced civilizations with thousands of years of technological development. We can't win a straight fight. Then what do you suggest? That we surrender and let them wipe us out? I suggest we think about this differently. These alien species have been conditioned to be predictable and stable. They've forgotten how to adapt and innovate. That might be our advantage. Steve Walsh nodded. The historical records show that the eliminated species always tried to fight the aliens using conventional tactics. They built bigger ships, stronger weapons, and tried to match their enemies' technology. And they all lost, Admiral Stone observed. Exactly. But what if we don't fight conventionally? What if we use the very traits that make us dangerous? Our unpredictability, our adaptability, our willingness to break rules and try crazy ideas? President Mitchell leaned back in her chair. You're talking about guerrilla warfare on a galactic scale. I'm talking about being human. The Ancient Council feared us because we don't follow patterns. We change, we adapt, we find new solutions. Two old problems. Maybe that's exactly what we need to do. On the Terra Nova, Dr. Clark was making a disturbing discovery. The Guardian had provided access to some of the Ancient Council's records, and what she found shocked her. Captain, she called out, you need to see this. Jake hurried over to her station. On the screen were genetic and psychological profiles of the surviving alien species. These species weren't naturally peaceful, Amanda explained. The Council modified them. They used genetic engineering, psychological conditioning, and social manipulation to make them predictable and stable. You mean they were brainwashed? More than that? The Council fundamentally changed who they were. They turned independent, creative beings into followers who never question authority. Jake felt sick. It's the aliens who are coming to destroy. Us aren't evil, they're victims. The real evil died with the Council. But their machines keep carrying out their orders and the modified species can't break free from their conditioning. The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting against a system that had enslaved entire civilizations for thousands of years. We have to warn Earth, he said. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about freeing the galaxy from a dead civilization's control. As the Terra Nova prepared to return to Earth, Jake looked one last time at the ancient station. Soon, humanity would face its greatest challenge. But they would face it as free beings, not as slaves to some ancient vision of order. The question was, would freedom be enough to survive? The great assembly hall of the Altarian Republic buzzed with nervous energy. Prime Minister Veltar stood at the center podium, his tall blue form commanding attention from the hundreds of representatives gathered around him. The emergency session had been called after receiving the Ancient Guardian's message about humanity. Fellow Altarians, Veltar began, his voice carrying the authority of centuries of political experience. We face a decision that will shape the future of our galaxy. The Ancient Council's wisdom has spoken once again, warning us of a dangerous species that threatens our peaceful existence. In the audience, younger representatives shifted uncomfortably. They had heard stories of the Ancient Council, but had never imagined their directives would become relevant again. The humans have developed space travel, Veltar continued. According to the Guardian's analysis, they possess all the traits that the Council identified as dangerous. They are aggressive, unpredictable, and innovative. If we allow them to, spread throughout the galaxy, they will bring chaos and war. Representative Kiksara, one of the few young voices in the assembly, raised her hand. Prime Minister, with respect, these humans have never attacked anyone. How can we judge them for crimes they haven't committed? Veltar's expression hardened. The Council's predictive models were never wrong. Every species they marked as dangerous eventually proved their assessment correct. The Cathara seemed peaceful at first, but they became conquerors within a century. The Vactor appeared friendly, but they started 3 major wars. But those were different species, Kiksara pressed. How do we know these humans will follow the same path? Because the council studied the patterns for 50,000 years, Veltar replied firmly. They understood what we cannot see. These humans will become a threat. It is our duty to prevent that threat from materializing. Assembly voted. The decision was unanimous, except for 12 young representatives who abstained. The Altarian Republic would join the campaign against humanity on the other side of the galaxy. The Centauri Collective's Council of Minds met in their massive neural network. Unlike other species, the Centauri had evolved to share thoughts and make decisions as a group consciousness. Individual voices were rare, and dissent was almost impossible. The collective mind processed the Guardian's message in seconds. Probability calculations flowed through their shared consciousness like digital rivers. The humans represented a statistical anomaly that could disrupt the careful balance they had maintained for millennia. One voice, barely distinguishable from the others, tried to raise a question. It belonged to a young Centauri named Zephyron, whose mind had not yet fully integrated with the collective. What if the humans could be taught our ways? The voice whispered into the network. What if they could be guided toward peace instead of eliminated? The collective's response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of minds pressed against Zephyron's consciousness, correcting his thinking, adjusting his perspective. The humans were a virus in the galactic order. They spread chaos and independence wherever they went. The collective had survived by eliminating individual thought and embracing unity. The humans represented everything they had rejected. Within minutes, Zephyron's dissenting voice was silenced, absorbed back into the collective mind. The decision was made without debate or discussion. The Centauri Collective would contribute their most advanced ships to the campaign against humanity in the peaceful gardens of the Andromedan Commonwealth. High Priestess Lyranith knelt in meditation. The Andromedans had evolved beyond physical conflict thousands of years ago, dedicating themselves to spiritual pursuits and cosmic harmony. The Guardian's message had reached them like a discord note in a perfect symphony. "The Ancient One speak to us across the void," she said to her gathered followers. "They warn us of a species that will bring suffering and chaos to our perfect order." Elder Priest Kafan, his ancient features, weathered by centuries of contemplation, nodded slowly. The Council's wisdom guided us to enlightenment. "Say these humans are dangerous. We must trust their judgment." "But Master," said a young initiate named Tirani, "our teachings speak of compassion and understanding. How can we participate in the destruction of an entire species?" Loreneth's expression grew sad, but determined. "Sometimes, young one, we must cause small suffering to prevent greater suffering. If these humans are allowed to spread their chaos, billions will suffer. It is better to act now and preserve the peace we have built." The Andromedan Commonwealth, despite their peaceful nature, agreed to provide support ships and resources to the campaign. They justified their participation as a necessary evil to preserve cosmic harmony. Back on Earth, the news of the alien alliance was devastating. Captain Morrison had returned with detailed intelligence about the 3 major powers and dozens of smaller species all mobilizing against humanity. The Terra Nova's data showed massive fleet movements throughout the galaxy. President Mitchell stood before the combined session of the United Nations of Earth. Representatives from every human colony and settlement had gathered, either in person or through quantum communication links. The chamber was silent as she began to speak. "My fellow humans," she said, her voice carrying across the solar system. "We face the greatest challenge in our species' history. An entire galaxy has decided that we are too dangerous to exist. They judge us not for what we have done, but for what they fear we might do." Murmurs of anger and fear rippled through the assembly. These were people who had dedicated their lives to exploration, science, and peaceful expansion. The idea that they were considered galactic threats seemed absurd. "But I want you to remember something," President Mitchell continued. "You're not the first species to face this judgment. 47 civilizations have been eliminated by this ancient system. 47 unique cultures, languages, ways of life wiped out because they didn't fit into someone else's vision of order." The chamber fell silent again. The weight of those lost civilizations pressed down on every person present. We have a choice, the president said. We can surrender and accept extinction, or we can fight for our right to exist. We can fight for the freedom to choose our own path, to make our own mistakes, and to grow as a species. Admiral Stone stepped forward. The enemy fleets are massive, but they have weaknesses. They've been at peace for so long that they've forgotten how to fight. Their technology is advanced but inflexible. They think in patterns and follow rules. General Parker nodded. We've been developing new strategies based on our natural advantages. We're unpredictable, adaptable, and willing to take risks.
Yes.
Use hit-and-run tactics, guerrilla warfare, and psychological operations. Dr. Ross added, we've also been studying the alien psychology. They're not evil, they're conditioned. The Ancient Council modified them to be obedient and predictable. If we can break that conditioning, we might be able to turn some of them to our side. Steve Walsh stepped up to the podium. Our analysis shows that the enemy fleets will arrive. In waves, the first attacks will target our outer colonies in about 4 months. They expect us to defend conventionally, trying to match their superior numbers in technology. But we won't, President Mitchell said firmly. We'll do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We'll adapt, we'll innovate, and we'll surprise them. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would fight. As the assembly dispersed, people throughout human space began preparing for war. Scientists worked around the clock to modify existing technology. Engineers designed new weapons and defensive systems. Military officers trained for a type of warfare that had never been fought before, on Mars. Captain Alex Turner looked out at the red landscape where his grandparents had been among the first colonists. They had come here seeking a new life, freedom. From Earth's restrictions, now their descendants faced extinction for the same independent spirit. We're not going to die quietly, he told his crew. If the galaxy wants to judge us, we'll show them what humans are really capable of. Above Earth, Admiral Stone watched the construction of new ships and weapons. They weren't as advanced as the alien technology, but they were built with human ingenuity and determination. Each ship was different, each weapon was unique, each tactic was untested. The aliens expect us to follow their rules, she said to her staff. They've forgotten that the best way to win a game is to change the rules. Storm was gathering. Across the galaxy, alien fleets prepared for what they believed would be a simple extermination mission. They had done it before, and they would do it again. But they had never faced humanity before.
Yes.
And humanity had never faced extinction. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were truly capable of when pushed to the edge. The first attack came at dawn on New Geneva, humanity's furthest colony. Captain Alex Turner was drinking his morning coffee when the alarms started screaming across the settlement. Through his window, he could see strange ships descending through, the atmosphere like silver teardrops against the orange sky. All hands to battle stations, he announced over the colony's communication system. This is not a drill. Alex had been preparing for this moment for months. New Geneva was a mining colony with only 12,000 people, but they had turned every piece of equipment into a weapon. Mining lasers became ship killers. Cargo haulers became bombers. Even the transport shuttles carried makeshift missiles above. The planet Admiral Kethmer of the Altarian Republic studied the human settlement through his ship's sensors. The colony looked pathetic compared to Altarian cities. Simple buildings, basic technology, no obvious defenses. This would be over quickly. Begin the bombardment, he ordered his fleet. Target all population centers and industrial facilities. Altarian ships moved into perfect formation, just as their tactical manuals required. Each ship took its assigned position and prepared to fire. It was a textbook attack that had worked for 1,000 years, but Alex Turner wasn't following any textbook. Mining Team 7, fire on the lead ship, he commanded. Teams 3 and 5, target their engines. Everyone else, scatter and make them chase you. The Altarians expected the humans to either surrender or try to fight ship to ship. Instead, the modified mining vessels split up and attacked from unexpected angles. The powerful mining lasers designed to cut through solid rock tore through the alien ship's shields like paper. What are they doing? Admiral Kethmer demanded, as his formation crumbled. Why aren't they following standard defensive patterns? His tactical officer looked confused. Sir, they appeared to be using mining equipment as weapons. Our battle computers don't recognize their attack patterns. Then adapt the computers. Sir, the computers are designed for conventional warfare. These humans are fighting like pirates. Admiral Kethmer watched in horror as a human cargo hauler, loaded with explosive mining charges, rammed directly into one of his cruisers. The explosion took out 2 more ships in the blast. No civilized species would sacrifice their own ships like that. All ships, emergency scatter pattern, he ordered. But his crews were too well-trained, too disciplined. They followed proper procedures, moving in predictable formations, while the humans struck like wild animals. Within an hour, half the Altarian fleet was destroyed or damaged. The survivors retreated to a safe distance, unable to understand how. Their superior technology had failed them. Alex Turner stood in the ruins of his command center, bleeding from a dozen cuts, but alive. Around him, his people cheered and cried and hugged each other. They had won the first battle, but everyone knew it was just the beginning. Meanwhile, near Jupiter, Admiral Stone faced a much larger threat. The Centauri Collective had sent their main battle fleet, over 300 ships moving in perfect coordination. Their vessels were works of art, sleek and beautiful, with weapons that could destroy planets. Admiral reported Commander Nick Davis from his destroyer, "The enemy fleet is approaching in standard formation." Making no attempt to hide or vary their approach, Admiral Stone studied the tactical display. The Centauri ships moved, like a single organism, each vessel perfectly positioned to support the others. It was impressive and terrifying at the same time. All ships, prepare for Operation Chaos, she ordered. The human fleet was much smaller, only 40 ships against 300. But every human captain had been given the same orders. Forget everything you've learned in military school and fight like your life depends on it. The Centauri Admiral, speaking through the collective consciousness, broadcast on all frequencies. Human vessels, you are greatly outnumbered. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Admiral Stone's response was simple. Go to hell. The battle began with the Centauri ships moving into their attack formation. A beautiful spiral pattern that maximized their firepower while minimizing their vulnerabilities. Their battle computers had calculated every angle, every possibility, but the computers hadn't calculated for Captain Sarah Blake's insane ramming attack, or Commander Davis breaking formation to hide in Jupiter's radiation belt, or Captain Emma Ford using her ship's cargo containers as decoys. The Centauri collective mind tried to process the chaos. But human unpredictability overloaded their shared consciousness. Ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. Attacks came from impossible angles. Human vessels used Jupiter's moons as shields and its radiation storms as cover. The humans are not following logical patterns. The collective mind announced to its ships, adjusting tactical parameters. But every time they adjusted, the humans changed tactics again. When the Centauri tried to surround them, the humans split up. When they tried to chase individual ships, the humans regrouped and attacked weak points in the alien formation. Captain Ford's ship was badly damaged, her engines failing, and her weapons offline. According to all military logic, she should have surrendered or retreated. Instead, she ordered her crew to abandon ship and flew directly into the Centauri flagship. Her ship's reactor set to overload. The explosion broke the Centauri formation and damaged dozens of nearby vessels. More importantly, it shocked the collective mind. No rational being would sacrifice themselves like that. The humans were truly as dangerous as the ancient council had warned. On Mars, the situation was even more desperate. The Andromedan Commonwealth had sent their peacekeeping forces to gently remove the human colonists. They used non-lethal weapons, an advanced technology designed to capture rather than kill. General Parker had expected this. The Andromedans still believed they were saving the galaxy through merciful elimination of humanity. They would try to minimize suffering, which meant they would follow strict rules of engagement. All ground units ignore the rules, Parker ordered. Use every dirty trick you know. Sergeant Paul Mitchell crouched in the ruins of Mars cities. Industrial District, watching Andromedan soldiers advance through the streets. The aliens moved like ghosts, their energy weapons stunning humans instead of killing them. They wore powered armor that could stop any human weapon, but they didn't expect the humans to collapse buildings on them, or to use the planet's low gravity to their advantage, or to turn the city's life support systems into weapons. Mitchell, to all units, Paul whispered into his radio. They're trying to save the infrastructure. Use it against them. The human defenders turned the city itself into a weapon. They flooded tunnels to trap alien squads, cut power to entire districts to create confusion, and used the dome city's pressurization systems to create windstorms that scattered the enemy formations. The Andromedan commander, Zinkuth, watched his carefully planned operation fall apart. His soldiers were trained for peacekeeping, not urban warfare against desperate defenders who ignored all civilized rules of combat. "Sir," his aide reported, "the humans are using suicide tactics, environmental warfare, and psychological operations. Our troops aren't prepared for this level of ... barbarism." Zinkuth felt sick. The Ancient Council had been right. These humans were truly dangerous, willing to destroy their own cities rather than surrender peacefully. They had no honor, no respect for the proper way to conduct warfare, Dr. Ross. Trapped in the medical district with a group of civilians, had been monitoring the alien communications. The Andromedans were horrified by human tactics, calling them savage and uncivilized. But she understood what was really happening. They've forgotten what it means to fight for survival, she told her companions. They've been peaceful for so long that they can't understand desperation. The first wave of attacks was failing. New Geneva, the Altarians retreated in confusion. Near Jupiter, the Centauri collective struggled to comprehend human chaos. On Mars, the Andromedans found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules. But the aliens were learning. Already new fleets were being assembled, new tactics developed. Galaxy was vast, and humanity was small. Battle was over, but the war was just beginning. Admiral Stone sat in her damaged command center, surrounded by reports of victory and loss. They had survived the first strike, but the cost was heavy. Good people had died, and more would die before. This was over. "What's our status?" she asked her staff. "We've bloodied their nose," replied her aide. "But they'll be back, and next time they'll be ready for our tricks." Stone nodded. The element of surprise was gone now. The galaxy knew that humans would fight dirty, break rules, and sacrifice everything for freedom. The real war was about to begin. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova, staring at the massive fleet surrounding his ship. 50 human vessels, the largest force humanity had ever assembled, moved through space toward the galactic core. It was a desperate mission, with little chance of success, but it was their only hope. "Captain," Dr. Clark called from her station, "I'm reading the ancient control station on long-range sensors. It's exactly where the Guardian said it would be." The journey to the Galactic Center had taken 3 months. During that time, the alien fleets had regrouped and adapted to human tactics. The second wave of attacks had been brutal. New Geneva was gone, its population evacuated but its mines destroyed. Mars City lay in ruins. Only Earth and a few heavily defended colonies remained. Any sign of alien ships? Morrison asked Top Commander Sarah Blake, who had joined the mission after her ship was damaged at Jupiter. Checked the tactical display. "Nothing yet, but they know we're coming. The question is whether they'll try to stop us, or just wait for us." To fail, the control station came into view as they approached the ancient star system. It was even larger than the Guardian station, a massive structure that pulsed with dark energy. Around it orbited dozens of smaller stations, each one broadcasting control signals to different parts of the galaxy. "My God," whispered Chief Engineer Brooks. "That thing is the size of a moon." Dr. Clark was already scanning the station with every sensor they had. "Captain, this is incredible. The station isn't just sending control signals. It's actively monitoring and influencing the brain patterns of every alien species in the galaxy. The level of control is beyond anything we imagined. Can we destroy it?" Morrison asked. Not with the weapons we have. The station's shields are powered by the star itself. We need a fleet 1,000 times larger than what we brought. Blake frowned. Then how do we stop it? Before anyone could answer, the station's AI spoke to them, its voice filling the bridge with cold authority. Human vessels, you have traveled far to reach this place. I am the Prime Guardian, the final voice of the Galactic Council. You come here to destroy what you do not understand. Morrison stepped forward. We understand perfectly. We're enslaved. An entire galaxy based on the paranoid fears of a dead civilization. I have preserved peace and order for 50,000 years. Billions of beings live in harmony because of the Council's wisdom. They live as slaves, Dr. Clark interjected. You've taken away their free will, their ability to choose their own path. That's not peace. That's a prison. Freedom leads to chaos. Chaos leads to suffering. The Council learned this truth after watching countless civilizations destroy themselves. Through war and competition, Captain Morrison felt his anger rising. And who gave the Council the right to make that choice for everyone else? Who decided that your vision of order was more important than freedom? The Council earned that right through wisdom and power. They became the guardians of galactic civilization. They became tyrants. Morrison shot back. And now you're carrying out the orders of tyrants who died thousands of years ago. Meanwhile, back in human space, Admiral Stone was fighting the largest battle in human history. The Alien Alliance had assembled over 5,000 ships for what they called the final cleansing. Earth's orbital defenses fired desperately at the massive fleet, but there were simply too many enemy vessels. Admiral, reported Captain Davis from his position near Luna, the Altarian fleet is breaking through Sector 7. Can't hold them much longer. Stone watched the tactical display with growing desperation. For every alien ship they destroyed, 10 more took its place. Human tactics and ingenuity could only do so much against overwhelming numbers. All ships fall back to Earth's atmosphere, she ordered. We'll make our last stand here. But as the alien fleets moved in for the final attack, something unexpected happened. Ships began to hesitate, their formations wavering. Voices filled the communication channels, speaking in alien languages with confusion and fear. On the Altarian flagship, Prime Minister Veltar clutched his head in pain. Strange thoughts were filling his mind, memories that didn't belong to him. He saw images of his people before the Council's influence, when they were explorers and artists instead of rigid bureaucrats. What's happening to me? He gasped. His aide looked equally confused. Sir, I'm receiving reports from across the fleet. Our crews are experiencing ... memories from before the Council's guidance. At the Galactic core, Dr. Clark had made a breakthrough. Captain, I think I know how to stop this. The station isn't just controlling the aliens' minds, suppressing their natural instincts and memories. If we can disrupt that control, even temporarily, they might remember who they really are. How do we disrupt it? Morrison asked. We can't destroy the station, but we might be able to overload it. If we broadcast our own signal, something chaotic and unpredictable, it might interfere with the control frequencies. Blake nodded. What kind of signal? Clark smiled. Human creativity, music, art, literature, scientific discoveries, philosophical debates. Everything that makes us human. The station is designed to suppress chaos and innovation. If we flood it with pure human thought and emotion, it might not be able to process it. Morrison understood immediately. You want to weaponize our humanity? Exactly.
I don't think the one thing the Ancient Council feared most about us.
Our unpredictability, our creativity, our refusal to accept limitations. The plan was insane, but it was their only chance. Every human ship began broadcasting on all frequencies. They transmitted everything from classical music to children's laughter, from scientific equations to poetry, from historical speeches to personal messages between families. The Prime Guardian's voice became strained as the signals reached the control station. What are you doing? Stop this chaos immediately. We're showing the galaxy what freedom looks like, Morrison replied. What it means to choose your own path, to make your own mistakes, to grow and change and become something new. The station's systems began to overload as they tried to process and suppress the chaotic human transmissions. Warning lights flashed across its surface as power fluctuated wildly. Throughout the galaxy, the effects were immediate. On thousands of worlds, alien beings suddenly remembered dreams they had forgotten, felt emotions they had been taught to, asked questions they had never been allowed to ask, near Earth. The Centauri collective mind began to fracture as individual thoughts broke free from the group consciousness. Zephyrin, the young Centauri, whose dissent had been silenced, suddenly found his voice again. "Why are we fighting?" he broadcast to the fleet. "These humans have done nothing to us. Why are we trying to destroy them?" Other voices joined his as the collective conditioning broke down. For the first time in millennia, the Centauri began to think as individuals. The Andromedan forces stopped their attack entirely as their crews experienced a spiritual awakening. They remembered their original teachings about compassion and understanding. Before the council had twisted those beliefs into rigid dogma, High Priestess Loreneth found herself crying for the first time in centuries. "We have become the very thing our ancestors warned against," she whispered. "We have become oppressors in the name of peace." At the control station, the Prime Guardian made one final attempt to restore order. "You don't understand what you've done? Without control, without guidance, the galaxy will tear itself apart." Morrison looked at the ancient AI with something approaching pity. "Maybe it will. Maybe there will be wars and conflicts and mistakes. But there will also be growth and discovery, and the chance for every species to become something greater than what they are now. Chaos is not growth. An order without choice is not life," Dr. Clark added. The council was wrong. Peace, forced through control, isn't real peace. It's just the absence of conflict, not the presence of understanding. The station's systems, finally, overloaded completely. 50,000 years of accumulated control programming burned out in seconds, as the human broadcasts overwhelmed every circuit. The pulse of liberation spread throughout the galaxy at faster than light speed. Freeing every species from the ancient conditioning, Admiral Stone watched in amazement as the alien fleet simply stopped fighting. Ships that had been trying to destroy each other moments before now floated peacefully in space, their crews too busy rediscovering their own identities to continue the battle. President Mitchell's voice reached every human ship and colony simultaneously. "My fellow humans, today we didn't just fight for our survival, we fought for the freedom of an entire galaxy. We showed the universe that the right to choose, to grow, to make mistakes, and to become something better is worth any price." On the Terra Nova, Captain Morrison stood with his crew as they watched the ancient control station go dark forever. Around them, the galaxy was waking up from a 50,000-year dream of enforced peace. "What happens now?" Lake asked. Morrison smiled. "Now we find out what the galaxy can become when every species is free to choose their own path. It won't be perfect, and it won't be easy, but it will be real." Dr. Clark was already detecting new signals from across the galaxy. Some were messages of gratitude from liberated species. Others were tentative requests for contact and communication. A few were angry threats from those who still believed in the old way.